As I mentioned already, this is not only changes in temperatures that are important. Besides temperature, we have precipitation change, which is important for everyday life of people. It could result in drought, climate change could result in a flood, and all the way between those two extremes is an average, which is going to be slightly more than normal. Also, sea level rise is a very hot topic, which is discussed everywhere. Georgia has a coast of the Atlantic Ocean, and that coast will be affected by expansion of the water and rising sea level. I will talk about it in a couple of minutes. Extreme event frequency change. Extreme events like a heat wave or extremely hot days can happen more often. Hurricanes will probably happen more often. Hurricanes are driven by moisture in the air and temperature difference between south and north. Global warming will change the whole temperature, but moisture will increase. The amount of moisture in the air will increase, so probably hurricanes will be more frequent in the future. And that means more sudden floods, like on this picture, while to keep the average in the same number, just a second, we'll have the rest of the year will be dry. Yes?
Does that also fall into, like, the year we had Katrina and Rita and all those huge hurricanes, and then the year after we had like almost no hurricanes? Is that same kind of thing? Sometimes you'll just have a huge year and then the next year you might not have anything.
Yes, that's right. That's a good point. All the models and all the stuff we operate in climate is averages. So some year it's a lot of moisture, some year it's dry, and we still have the same average. So something above, something below, but the average goes pretty much constant. So slight increase in average means maybe the spread or amount of extreme events is going to be higher, and then going to be stronger hurricanes, stronger droughts. Together it will result in the same average. Also, air quality suffers. With the increased temperatures, we'll have more smog and we'll have air quality going down, which will affect people with asthma, people with high blood pressure, and elderly people who have a hard time adjusting to those conditions. Another bad consequence of the climate change is ecosystem changes. We don't have penguins in Georgia, of course, maybe in the Georgia aquarium, but we have other animals, including the wild animals, that will be affected. Their life is very dependent on both temperature and water and plants as a food. So their ecosystem and their habitat will be significantly changed. Yes?
Is there concern about the Okefenokee having
This one, yes. I'll talk about it a little bit later. Can you please?
Will plants and vegetation, will they be affected?
Of course. You know, we need water for plants, right? And if sometimes we have lots of water, plants will be okay, but the rest of the time we'll have very few water available for plants. They will just dry out. They are in danger. Okay, so those factors that global warming brings, they result in some bad consequences for property. For example, all the property along the beaches might be affected. Sea level rise, maybe by itself it's not such a bad thing, but the storm surge and tides are kind of resting on the top of that sea level rise, so they will be added to the sea level. So the storm surge will get stronger and tides will get higher, and therefore property might suffer. This will bring stronger erosion of the coast, flooding, and that salt water can affect both surface fresh water and underground fresh water, which are significantly important sources for water in Georgia, and they could get contaminated with salt further into coast. Right now, it's only, say, close to the coastline, but it could get pushed into the coast. As I said, precipitation and water resources will suffer. Water resources are already kind of exhausted in our area. I'll show a picture later of Lake Lanier. And we all have water restrictions right now for watering lawns and outdoor water use. Unfortunately, the condition might get better, but in the long-term projection, we need to do something. Otherwise, we will have the same restrictions, the same lack of water. Agriculture may experience difficulties. Plants will suffer without water also. The increased temperature changes the way plants absorb nutrients from soil, the way they absorb CO2. And some plants might produce less, and some plants might produce more. I will talk about it later in a second. Energy consumption and generation is one of the consequences, one of the items that might be affected by global warming. Most of the electrical energy for Georgia is produced by either coal power station or nuclear, and both of them use fresh water for cooling. You need to cool the reactor to keep it from exploding or blowing up, and they use insane amount of water for that. Same way for coal stations, they also have a lot of water, and there will be a competition between the water needed for power production and water needed for drinking and everyday use. So same amount of water will be in more deficit. Health effects. So heat waves is probably the most dangerous part of the climate change because of the increased frequency of the heat waves for us, for Georgia. Air quality will suffer, and as I said, it could affect people with health problems. And finally, diseases are spread by animals. They're called vector-borne disease. Climate change can change the way animals develop and how many of them we have. Those include insects and other small animals that spread the disease. So this is another important issue. And again, plant animal habitat change we already mentioned. So plants will suffer probably, and because they cannot adjust that fast. For in terms of animal habitat, this 50 years or 100 years is a very short term. Plants and animals are used to live in specific conditions for hundreds and thousands of years, and they adapted to them. So this change is very fast for them, and they cannot adjust. And they will probably suffer bad stuff unless we do something and try to relocate them or try to mitigate the way climate affects them. Each of these bullet points has some cost involved and has some negative consequences for economy. So altogether, this is, I don't even give an estimate because it's extremely high numbers, and because we don't exactly know which part and how much of Georgia is going to suffer or experience a change. So I don't have numbers right now, but we have to understand this is going to be a high number.